Logan Ransley from Landlord Studio, and in today's little demo we're going to go through the accountant flow and how accountants interact with client accounts, how clients can get set up, and we'll also go through a little bit of the features that Landlord Studio typically offers in the platform. So when an accountant signs up for our partner portal and our partner program, they get a client manager that looks like this. And so when you log into the client manager, typically you'll have a list of active clients that you're managing, and you'll also have this other tab here, which is invited clients. Now, inviting clients is really easy. You can simply just click this button here. That will pop up a invite client pop up here, where you can fill in the client's details in here as well. There's then the subscription type here, and now basically how it works is if you invite a client on Landlord Studio Go, then the client fully manages the billing profile for themselves. It means they can use the free plan, but it also means they can upgrade to the pro plan if they decide to use more features or add more properties, or whatever they decide to use it for. And this subscription type basically allows the client to fully manage their own billing. They pay for the subscription if they decide, or to use that Go plan if they decide as well. The other version of the subscription type is the Pro subscription type, and this is an accountant managed billing license. So when you sign up for our wholesale license, we invoice you once a month based on the number of clients that are in your organization, and based on the billing of the number of units, etc., depending on what plan you're on with Landlord Studio. And so when you invite a client in on this, they don't see any sort of billing, they don't see the subscription page. This is fully managed by the accounting firm on that invoiced sort of monthly cycle. And so when you invite that client in, either way, depending on which subscription type that you choose, they will receive an email invitation from Landlord Studio asking them to set up their account. Now, once they've been sent this email invitation, you'll see under here invited clients, and it will have a status depending on whether they've accepted that invitation or not, or if that invitation has been expired. In that case, you would need to re-invite them. Once they've accepted the invitation, they will be an active client under your active client list. Now from here, you can see all your active clients and also the total number of units that are inside their account. Now, a way to see if they've onboarded correctly or even added any sort of information into their account, like properties, for instance, is to look at this column and see if any sort of units have been added. In this case, I can see Landlord Studio Partners has added a total of 5 units to their account. That means that they've set up their properties correctly, and I can see that they've started interacting with Landlord Studio. Now, what you can do from here is you can actually go into that client's account directly from your dashboard and start to interact fully with their organization, their actual account. And as you can see up here, I'm currently viewing Landlord Studio Partners. I can always return to the client list by clicking this button here. It will take me back to that client list here. Now, if I connect to their account, I can fully interact with their account. I can add all the information in here. I can manage all the accounting. I can set up properties. I can effectively do anything with this account, either managing it fully on behalf of that client or simply observing and retrieving data or auditing the accounts if I need. Now that we're in Landlord Studio, let's go through some of the features that the client's going to see, or the team at the accounting organization is going to be able to use and see as well. Now, typically when you log into a client's account, or the client logs into their account, you're presented with this dashboard. Now, Landlord Studio is focused on a financial accounting aspect of property management, along with offering a few property management types of features to help the client better manage their properties, better understand communications, better understand tenants, manage all the tenant files, documents, etc. And so we would consider it a full-fledged property management software with a focal point on effectively the accounting process of property management. And so from here, I can interact with this dashboard. I can see the cash flow over time, rent received, upcoming payments, rent overdue, all the sort of high level information that I need to know about this particular portfolio of properties, whether it's 1 all the way up to 100 or more. We scale with the user. It becomes useful for every single property that they have. And so I can filter this dashboard if I like from this sort of properties drop down here. If I want to dive into a specific sort of property, I can actually see that from this menu here, and I can go into a specific property, for instance. If I'm not sure that this rent overdue is applied to a specific property, I could effectively choose that property and see that that rent overdue is not actually applied to that property. This particular property is got no cash flow or accounting information at the moment, but you can see how we can start to filter this dashboard by the properties. The way Landlord Studio is structured is very similar to accounting software, with a few sort of differences. Now, in traditional accounting software, you'll typically use chart of accounts. We have a similar structure called categories. Because we're a cash basis type accounting software, we have payment and expense categories that are assigned to transactions at the point of that transaction happening. And so I can see here I've got rent, I've got damages, deposits, late fees, etc. And then my expense categories here as well. Now, for customers, we typically will pre-populate categories based on the tax legislation wherever they may be residing. So, for instance, in the UK, we pre-populate all the categories from the HMRC. For the US, we pre-populate all the categories from the Schedule E. And so what that means is when clients, if they are doing their own accounting, they can simply choose these categories that will be related to real estate or property investments, and it basically allows them to easily enter in transactions whilst not getting confused by accounting terminology as such. And so these are all pre-set up. You can change these, you can add new ones, you can delete these, you can alter these if you like. It's in the settings. You can simply go there if you need to set up more or remove them to customize the set of categories for your specific client. Now that I've got a dashboard that is showing a little bit of information, what I can do from here is simply go into some of these sort of areas of the property itself. So, for instance, if I want to have a look at rent overdue, I can click into rent overdue, and that's going to generate me an overdue rent payment report for all the different properties in my portfolio. Again, whether it's 1 all the way up to 100 plus, we cater for that. And so we have a full breakdown here of all the rent outstanding from all the different payment periods over time, with a number of days that are overdue as well. I can then go even further by opening up the details and opening up each property that's listed here as well. But let's just head back to the dashboard and have a look at some of these other reports as well. Let's say I want to navigate to one of these cash flow areas and see exactly what happened in May from a income and expense point of view. I can click into there and it will give me a breakdown of all the different transactions that happened from all the different properties, or if it's filtered by the dashboard from that specific property. And so I can see I had an insurance payment of £250 for the 14th of May this year for this particular property. In this case, it was for my organization, which is simply general expenses that the client can allocate or the accountant. But in this case here, there's a utility bill for property A on the 13th of May for £500. And so what this really does is it gives you a lot of sort of insight into cash flow and transactions and where transactions are happening and what types of transactions are happening. But you can even go as further as sort of occupancy. So I can see here all these different properties. I can see how many days have been rented. And this gives me a bit of an occupancy overview of all the different properties. So that's really an overview of the dashboard and how it works. This is a great way to generate reports. And if you're an accountant integrating or interacting with this client, you can simply log into their account, see if they've logged their payments up to date or expenses up to date. If they haven't and you're offering that service, then you can do it for them. But this is a great way to see a very high level overview of the property portfolio itself, or if you want that sort of more granular sort of overview insights into the portfolio, you can then click into all the different areas. So how do you actually set up properties? Now, properties are really easy to set up. Basically, how the accounting works is done on, again, a cash basis type accounting methodology. And the biggest difference between Landlord Studio and, say, something like Xero or QuickBooks Online is that we do all the accounting on a property by property basis. Typically, if you're using Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, etc., you'll set up an account for an organization overall, and then you'll have to use things like tracking categories or classes to then break down the ledger by property, and then effectively that's making it a lot more complex, a lot harder to track. And if the client's managing their accounts, it can often lead to a pretty big mess. And so what we've done is we've split everything out. We've added the concept of a property. You can set up a property easily by just coming here, entering in the information. Everything's pre-populated. You don't have to do anything. Simply enter in the address, pre-populates all the information. We then have the ability to split this out into an HMO. So if you are running a building with multiple units, you can add that multi-unit here and then add the individual units under that multi-unit. Now that's really important because effectively once you get into the unit and you add a tenancy to start logging some income transactions, it's all done on the unit by unit level if you are tracking it for an HMO. That's useful because we actually track balances of amounts that are due and amounts that are overdue, and therefore it allows landlords to really stay on top of how much is in arrears or not. It also allows them to track individual expenses on a unit by unit level to really understand the granularity of how much is being spent on each individual unit itself. Doesn't necessarily impact the tax and accounting sides when it comes to the accountant, but it gives the landlord, again, a lot more control over each individual unit. So you can add all your information there. Once you've added that property, you can then go into that property, and this is where all the sort of action starts to happen. So once that property's been added, this is where all the information from the tenancy, the payments, the tenants, the owners, property documents, tenancy documents, notes, reminders, and then obviously the accounting aspect, which is income, expenses, and mileage here as well. And so what I can do is I can set up a tenancy with the sort of rent remaining. It's shown here as sort of rent. This is the overdue rent payments. I can see it's overdue by a certain number of days. Again, this is tracking the balance of the payments against that property. I can then see the sort of all the information around the tenancy, the payments, and this owner's here as well. Now this is useful because if you are managing your portfolio using Landlord Studio, more than just the accounting aspect, then you can start to send out email comms and interact with the tenant. If you're a property manager, there's property management features that give more control and more sort of flexibility around how the whole platform interacts with those tenants. And so this tracks everything from sort of expenses through to mileage, reminders, and everything. Now, adding payments is really easy, or adding transactions is really easy. You can do it in 3 different ways. The first is you can manually log transactions, which just allows you to raise sort of that transaction manually. Very similar to just raising a manual sort of expense or add expense, spend money in Xero, for instance. You can do that simply by clicking this log new payment button here, or add new expense button here. The second way is you can import transactions from a bank statement or a CSV. And so if you want to import expenses in bulk to bring the accounts up to date from a bank statement, you can do that from here. Now the third way is by using the bank feeds feature, which is one of the most popular features. So let me navigate back to the dashboard here. Now we can start to automate some of those transactions and automate some of the reconciliation of the accounts by using that bank feeds feature. We interact or integrate with Plaid, open banking, fully GDPR compliant, using their trusted and secure integration. They connect with over 12,000 financial institutes across the UK, US, Canada, and other jurisdictions. And basically what we do is we use their platform to then import all the transactions directly into Landlord Studio securely, so that you can then effectively log those transactions against the property. Now these transactions, or this transaction feed, is not stored on our system. It's simply just read from the bank feed directly. So with that in mind, I'm just going to connect a new bank account using Plaid. This will open up a flow where I can go in and then select the type of bank that I want, or the different bank that I want. I'm just going to open this in a different tab. It's not shown on the screen, but all I need to do is add in my username and password, go through the 2-factor authentication, and then all I need to do is then select my different types of transactions. So I can select these here, hit continue. I've read all the terms and conditions, and then that connects my bank account directly to Landlord Studio, where I can then read all the transactions straight into Landlord Studio. This is updated whenever I come onto this page, and then I can see a full bank feed of transactions come through. Now you'll notice a few things straight off the bat. There's a few matches that have been found. So what our platform allows you to do is simply match transactions with existing transactions. So in this case, I can see that there's a payment that I've logged previously in Landlord Studio, and this is saying that it's found that transaction, and we're going to match it up with this bank feed here. And so what I can do is simply come in here, just make sure all the details are correct. In this case, it's automatically applying it to a lease period or tenancy period from the past for a certain property. All I need to do is just add a description if I want, add any sort of notes here, hit reconcile, and then it's done. Easy as that. That's a great way to automatically connect up all the sort of transactions that come through from the feed. Now, in the case of this particular transaction here, this isn't a transaction that's currently in Landlord Studio logged against a property already. So what I can do is come in here. I can see that it's a spend money of £6.33. All I need to do is come in here, select one of the properties that it's applied to. For instance, let's choose 1 Apple Park Way. I can then select my category. So in this case, I know that this was a really small cleaning fee for that particular property, and it was for a specific supplier. So let's say it was a cleaning fee for floors, for instance. Now, if I want to sort of go into more detail here, I can then open up another field here and then select a supplier directly from my supplier list. So in that case, I've got my Perfect Cleaner company here. I can add that supplier, which is really useful if you're wanting to generate reports to see how much you've spent with certain suppliers and what types of transactions you've done with them. So all I need to do there is click Update, add any receipts or notes again, hit Reconcile, done. Easy as that. Let's say I've received a rent payment minus a property management fee. So let's say I've got an agent that is either managing my portfolio and I'm just simply doing the accounting on behalf of my properties, or I've got a property manager using this platform for tracking the accounting. There's always going to be some agent fees that we need to assign into the properties as well. So in this case, I can add a expense for a property management fee. Let's say that I received £510 and my property management fee was £10. I can then add that as an expense, and so this should balance out into £500. And this is basically saying I've received 510, I've minus 10, and the remaining is 500. And so what we're reconciling here is a £500 payment that's hit the bank account, but catering in for the expenses on the way. I can then add the sort of receipts and notes if I want to, hit reconcile, done. Super easy, makes all that sort of accounting process really straightforward, and there's no sort of going back and forward to try add all these sort of manually expense transactions if we want. Another way we can do if we want to track sort of capex costs. So let's say that this particular transaction here was for 1 Apple Park Way. We know it was a maintenance fee for a roof repair, for instance. And let's say this was actually a capital expense. We can actually mark that as a capex cost here. Again, choose our sort of suppliers if we want. Hit update, add the receipts, notes, reconcile, done. And then I can go back into my reporting if I want to see any sort of capital expenditure, capex, anything like that. Easy, can always export that out directly from the reports. Now, a great thing about the bank feeds is the bank rules. So I can set up rules to effectively automatically assign transactions that come through from the bank feed into Landlord Studio, and then it means that all I need to do is just go in and hit reconcile, and that saves a lot of time here as well. So you can see these sort of matches have been found already from the bank feed rules. And let's say we wanted to set up a new rule, we can always come in here, choose the sort of description or amount. So in this case, I'll set up one for a description containing, let's say, property management for Apple Park. And so what happens here is that any sort of transaction that comes through containing a description that has this value here will then apply the next action down here. So in this case, I'm setting it up as an expense. So in this case, the expense is for Apple Park Way. I know it's an agent fee or property management fee, but let's say it's something else. We can always change it here. If it's a split expense across multiple properties, then I can do that here as well. It means that I can apply that if I need to. And so let's say this was 50, this was 50. That way we could split that transaction out. And then effectively what this is doing is it's going to apply all these rules to that transaction. And so when that transaction comes through, it's going to automatically contain all the fields per that rule I've set up. So all I need to do is hit reconcile and it's done. Or if I know it's all correct already, easy as that, click OK. All those transactions are created in Landlord Studio, bringing the accounts up to date, saving a lot of time there and manual effort. So that's a really brief overview of sort of Landlord Studio. Again, if we sort of jump back to the accountant's client portal, once you've started to log those payments and those transactions and do all that accounting, again, it's all broken down here on the dashboard. You can see all the sort of transactions that are happening here. And then let's say I want to go run a report on a specific client. So in this case, I'm going to jump into the reports menu. We have a number of different reports that you can run, both accounting, but also sort of property management and expenses, rent payments, etc. So one of the most popular reports is the sort of income expense statement. This is a trailing sort of 12-month report or trailing month-to-month report where I can see it across the year. And so what this is highlighting here is the aggregated transactions across each month for each individual category per my filters. So I can again filter by property here if I want, change the date range, filter out any sort of categories if I want to just narrow down into a specific area, and then I can also run it just by sort of property as well. So for instance, if I wanted to see property by property, then I can see this here. So for this date range, I can then see it broken down by property. But in this case, we'll use the month, and then it's broken down by month to month. Now you can see these are highlighted here. So if I want to actually, run a report on those specific transactions, I can then go in and see the full breakdown list of the transactions that happened in that report. Again, by that category, for the date period that was in the previous report, and also by property as well. So this gives you a lot of flexibility around analyzing and seeing all the different transactions of the property and seeing exactly how it all works for that specific property. As an accountant, I can then export this out as a CSV file, download it as a PDF, email it through to any sort of staff. And again, as a client, you can do this as well. So you can always export the raw data out into CSV and use that for tax filing, for manipulating data, for whatever you would like to use it for. We give a lot of flexibility around that from here. The final thing I want to touch on is the integrations. So we have a full integration with Xero. If you do decide to use Xero, the way that Xero integration works is through a one-way push into Xero from Landlord Studio. Landlord Studio effectively becomes the data entry tool, which can still be used for doing all the accounting and the reporting and everything that you would like. But if you want that more flexible and more advanced accounting functionality, then you can use the Xero integration to then push all the data into Xero from Landlord Studio. The way this works is you connect to your Xero account. You then map the chart of accounts in Xero, the Xero organization with our categories. So for instance, if you want to map a rent category to a specific chart of account, then you can do that. And then the way that we break out and cater for managing the accounting for each individual property is done by using tracking categories and bank accounts. And so once you've set up those tracking categories and bank accounts, you can then effectively track each individual property's transactions in Landlord Studio, which is then pushed into Xero in the correct format as well. The other settings that you can set up as well is posting transactions as reconciled. So As a standard setup, we push all the transactions from Landlord Studio into Xero unreconciled. It means that you have to go into Xero and then either reconcile it using the bank feed over there, or using a import statement, or another methodology. But if you want to simply just push the data into Xero just to keep it in one place and have it all pre-reconciled, relying on the bank feed of Landlord Studio and the import sort of functionality of our software, then you can select here as yes. All the transactions go into Xero pre-reconciled, so you don't have to do anything on that end. You just have a dual accounting set up with all the information over there. So that's a little bit about Landlord Studio. I hope you've enjoyed this demo. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're fully GDPR compliant, hosted on Microsoft Azure, and we are compliant with all legislation rules. So if you have any questions about that, security-wise or anything like that, feel free to reach out to Landlord Studio or myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Hope you've enjoyed this, and again, we'll see you soon and talk to you soon. Thanks.